Aloha and welcome to the second part of my Intelligent Rebellion Toolkit. I'm so glad you're joining me on this journey. Now, this particular part of the toolkit is about embodiment, what it means, why it's important, but also looking how do we translate that into movement, particularly the spine. And so that's why I've entitled this section, The Freedom of the Spine. Now, first of all, you might have asked yourself, well, what does an embodiment practice really mean? So if you've been focusing on a practice that's more linear in structure, that it's more about refining and perfecting shapes, you've probably been looking at the movement part of your practice or the asana practice from the outside in. With embodiment, we flip that around, and what we do is we look at the body from the inside and let it express itself on the outside, however it is for each individual. The important thing about this, it's about feeling and sensing what's happening in the body. So it's more exploratory, it needs more curiosity, and it has less rules and regulations. And this is important because we're all individuals. We all have different bone structure, we're at different ages, different life stages, so many different aspects to each individual so that we arrive in our body with a different story, with a different frame of reference. And if embodiment is about exploring and experiencing, we'll have a different experience each time we arrive on the mat, each time we come back to our practice, whether it's in movement or in stillness. When we move on to looking at the spine, millions of people all over the planet suffer from back pain. And we've been told it's because we're sitting more, if you've done something heavy lifting, if you stand too much at your job, and this can exacerbate back pain. And a lot of that's true. And also, I'm never going to say yoga's the be-all and end-all of fixing back pain. However, when we start to feel what's going on in our spine by finding natural range of motion, by really owning the movements that we're capable of, instead of letting somebody else tell us a right way and a wrong way to do something, we start to feel and experience and express what our spine can do. We start to trust it, and then we can move into releasing tension that might be building up from sitting too long, or perhaps, sitting at computers all day long. So to have an exploration with that, why don't you take a little sample of the course right now? Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the psoas. Now, if you haven't heard the name of that muscle before, it's a really important connection from your pelvis all the way up into your lower back. So to illustrate, I'm just going to come to stand, help you see where it is. So the psoas starts at the inner part of the top of your femur bone, that's your thigh bone, and it travels all the way through the center of the pelvis. Like you can't feel it or see it in the front or the back. And it comes up and attaches on the inside of the spine, all 5 lumbar vertebrae, and quite often also on the lowest thoracic vertebrae. So that's where your ribs start, okay? So think about it, I'm standing up now, so it's elongated, right? But what happens is we tend to sit for hours and hours. If you drive a lot, if you sit at a desk a lot, more and more now people are spending less time upright and moving and more time sitting. So what happens here, the psoas itself is designed to flex your legs. So if you're a runner or a cyclist, you probably have a very strong psoas. But if you're sitting a lot, what happens is it gets shortened. So let's imagine I'm sitting all day long at my desk. My psoas is getting shorter and shorter, but it's not getting stronger because I'm not activating it. And then I stand up, but because of where it's connected to in the lumbar spine, I feel my lower back hurt. So I try to stand upright and it's like, oh, my back. And I think there's something wrong with my back. But in fact, all I need to do is get into the psoas. So we're going to play with a few things just so that you can feel that. If you're comfortable, get down on the floor. Starting from all fours, just swing one leg around to a lunge. Now, if you have difficulty placing your hands down, I always recommend getting blocks, or you can get a couple books or something like that. Now, instead of thinking I'm going to stretch my psoas, what I want you to think is I'm going to remove tension from it. So I start with what I call the hula hoops. So from this lunging position, I want my hips to circle. So what's happening in this circular action is that my thigh bones are moving around in the hip sockets, and all of the muscles that connect into the hip sockets and travel up into the lower back and down into the thigh itself, they're just getting this nice massage, right? So we're moving fluid, we're moving the connective tissue, we're hydrating at the same time. And it allows my body to release tension where it might have crept up. So this is always my prep. I'm always going to look for a way to ease into the body instead of force it into a position. So then I'm going to come forward. Now I'm going to move into this lunge. I want to think my pelvis is elastic, right? So I don't want to drop it down and try to force the hips to go lower, but I don't want the hips way up here because then I'm shortening the psoas again. So if I keep this sense, there's a little bit of buoyancy here. And then think of the rest of the spine. The front of the spine can lift, the shoulder blades can just soften. If it's comfortable for you, tuck your back toes under, lift your back knee, but don't straighten it. I want to keep mobile in that thigh bone. So now we have this elastic pulse here. And what this does, like think of your heartbeat, right? It pushes blood into the veins, into your arteries, because it's got that pulsing. And it's the same thing with all your muscles. The fluid is being pushed through, so we stay a little bit more elastic. And just then pause and rest for a moment. And what I like to do is a compare and contrast. So coming up to standing, and then as you stand, just close your eyes for a moment and notice, what does the leg that you did, so that'll be the back leg, what does that feel like in comparison to the other leg? Does it feel longer? Maybe have a little walk. I'm just going to walk around on my mat in a circle. That's all you need to do. Just kind of walk and feel, how does the leg that I released feel in comparison to the other leg? And then how does that feel into my lower back? So you might notice the side that you did, the lower back starts to feel a little bit freer. So in order to stay even, we're going to do both sides. So coming down again, I'm going to take my left foot forward this time. Make sure you're comfortable. Sometimes having padding on the back knee is super helpful. And we go back to these hula hoop actions. So once again, I'm not interested in how big the circles are or how small. I just want to feel how my thigh bones, my femur bones move in the hip sockets. So if I'm met with resistance, if I'm met with a clunking or a clicking, I want to know that's where I need to be cautious, right? I don't want to just plow through. And you might notice the lower back moves anyway, right? It's attached. So it's starting to get that little snaking and circling action, finding that freedom. And then let's play with bringing it into that elastic lunge, as I call it. So the hips drop just enough to feel like, again, I've got that buoyancy. And tucking the back toes under, lift the back knee. Again, I don't want to lock it because then I'll jam that thigh bone into the hip socket. So I want to find this nice elastic quality. And then the chest can lift as much as it feels comfortable. Think about the front and the back of the neck. Remember, that's the very top of your spine. Have a little play with that. And then placing the knee back down. And once again, let's just come up to standing to test that out. So as I come up, first thing I'm going to notice just standing, how does that feel now? Shoulders relaxed. Notice the whole band of muscle across the lower back. Does that feel a little bit freer? And of course, take a little walk. Now, if you've got plenty of space, walk around your whole room. And just feeling now how the legs move in the hip sockets and how the lower back responds. And so this is something that you can do. It's super simple every day, especially if you've been sitting all day. You can just do that little quick psoas release and then see how your lower back feels. Or if you stand all day, that's another time that we get really stuck in the psoas. Okay. When you're ready, we'll come back to sitting. I hope you found that super useful and already you're feeling relief in your spine. And notice, isn't that magic? Just a little bit of movement between the pelvis and understanding how the lower back works. You have a different perspective of releasing and finding a relationship with your back. Join me to explore a unique individual embodied practice with yourself.